Hello everyone and happy Friday. We're going to be looking at lesson 58 today. So if you don't have that printed right now, if you would pause the video and go ahead and get that. It is posted on Google Classroom. You're going to find it in a PDF form just like you've been seeing. Just scroll to 58 and print just the pages that you need. When you come back to school, I can give you the rest of the packet since I have made copies of those already for you. Okay, so today's lesson is dealing with percent word problems. We're already very familiar with percent word problems and how to set those up. Saxon teaches a little bit different method in this particular lesson. They teach us to look at parts of the problems, translate those, and then organize them in these little diagrams. I'm not really particularly crazy about the diagrams, so I don't use them to their fullest, but I will show you how they can be useful. I feel like they're somewhat confusing the way that Saxon uses them, so I'm not going to require that you use them, but it is a helpful method to kind of organize some of the thoughts of these problems. So let's just go ahead and get started with the first example that's in your notes. Ben and Jacob have 60 donuts. Ava asks for 20% of them. How many does Ava want? Okay, so we're going to draw two circles here. This is going to be our diagrams. And in those diagrams, the first one's going to be a representation of the number that we had at the start. In other words, before the 20% was given away. So Ben and Jacob had 60 donuts. That was the starting. 60. The second circle, we're going to divide that up into two sections. The first section is going to be the 20% that Ava asked for. And since we're asking for how many Ava asked for 20% of them, how many does Ava want? The other percent would be what she doesn't want, and that is 80%. So this is Ava's, and this is what's left. It's just a way to organize your information. What we're looking for here is what number is 20% of 60. So we're looking for the of 60. So we've been learning that we are going to write the percent as 20 out of 100. Remember, percent just means out of 100. So we're going to look for 20% of 60 equals what number? And this is 20% is what number? I'm going to go ahead and just write that in there. Okay? And again, this is the important part here. We need to know this. We really didn't need to know that 80%, but it is kind of part of the thought process here. Okay, so now I have 20 over 100 times 60 equals my variable, what number? And I just keep moving along here. I'm going to do some canceling because I can. Let's see, 20 goes into each one of those 3 and 5 times. So that makes it a little bit easier. Oh, and then I can also do 5 and 20. So I'm going to end up with 12 equals the answer here. So 12 is 20% of 60. So out of the original 60 donuts, Ava took 20% of those, which equaled 12 donuts. That's number one. The second one, David has 15 tacos left. If he started with 90 tacos, what percentage did he eat? So let's go ahead and get our circles, our little diagrams. He started with 90 tacos, so 90 goes in here. And that is like what we call, or Saxon calls, the before information. So before he eats them, there were 90. And then in the second circle, we're going to split that up into two parts here. And we notice that there are 15 left, which means then how many what percentage did he eat? Okay, so first of all, we can figure out how many tacos he actually ate. I think he's a little piggy. So we take 90 and we subtract the 15, and you're going to end up with 75. So he ate 75 tacos. Now, what are we trying to find out here? We're trying to find out how many he ate. So I'm going to highlight that part right here. What percentage he ate. So we're looking for what percent of 90 is 75. Okay, so let's write this out. So we're going to have what percent of, which we know is multiply, 90 is, which is equal to, and actually, let me just make one little correction here because we're writing this as percent this way, P over 100 equals 75. Okay, so we want to know what 75 is, what percent of 90 is where we're going with this. Okay, so we could end up multiplying, let's see here, we're going to take 10 out of both of these. I'd have 9 and 10. So I'd have 9/10 P equals 75. I can multiply by the reciprocal on both sides here. And P is going to be equal to 750 over 9. Let me put that in my calculator real quick. 750 divided by 9 is 83.33. So we're going to round that to 83%, which makes sense because really he ate almost 100% of those donuts, didn't he? He was pretty close. He ate 75 out of 90. It's not quite 100%, but it should be a pretty high percent. So 83% would be the answer to number 2. Let's look at number 3 here. Bryson walked 24 blocks. This is 20% more. Now, this is going to be a new problem. We haven't really seen these in this class. 20% more than what Zach walked. How many blocks did Zach walk? Okay, so all we really know here is how many blocks Bryson walked. So let's put a circle here for that. Bryson walked, this is the before information. He walked 24 blocks. I'm going to abbreviate that so it'll fit in my little circle there. Okay. The second diagram over here, the second little circle, is going to represent the 20% more. Now, I want you to think about this, okay? If Bryson walked 20% more than what Zach walked, that means he walked the 100%. He walked 100% of what Bryson walked plus 20% more. So when you're figuring this out, you're not going to use 20%. You're actually going to use 120%. So we're looking for what number is 120% of 24 blocks. So let's write this out. So what number is 120% of 24? Okay, if you're still not clear why it's 120%, I want you to think about that. Okay, Bryson walked 20% more than what Zach walked. Okay, I'm sorry, we're trying to figure out how many blocks Zach walked, right? Yes, okay, I'm sorry. I'm tired, it's late at night. So Bryson walked 24 blocks, and that is 20% more than what Zach walked. Okay, so we have to consider the fact that we're looking at 100% plus the extra 20. You'll see more like this, so don't be scared if you're not quite following that just yet. All right, so let's go ahead and work this out. I'm just thinking here for 1 second. Okay. Excuse me. So I'm just going to do the math on this. If I do 120 times 24, let me put that in my calculator really quickly. 120 times 24 is 2,880 over 100. And you're going to get 28.8 8. Okay, so that makes sense because if you think about it, 100%, if they walked the same amount, so to walk 100% of what Bryson walked, that means that Zach would have walked 24 blocks. But he didn't walk 24 blocks. He walked more than 24 blocks. Not too much more, just 20% more. So it's 20% over the 100% that Bryson already walked. Okay? Actually, I've got to think about that. I might have to come back to this one. Because I'm saying this like Bryson walked the 20% more. But actually, Zach would have walked less. So this one probably needs to be redone. I'm going to erase that. I may have to think about that one and bring this one to class. Okay, and if you think you know what it is, I would like for you to work it out, and then maybe we can talk about it on Tuesday when we come back to class. Let's go ahead and look at the practice set here. The practice set is on page 237. We'll look at A. Jane and Faye have 32 bagatelles left. If they began with 16 bagatelles, I don't even know what that is, what percent of the original number remains? Okay, so we're going to draw our little diagram here. 2 circles. And in the first circle, remember, it always represents where we're starting from. So before we make the change, that's the number that goes in there. So they have 32 bagatelles left. So that is not the beginning information, is it? That's going to go in the second circle. 32 left. If they began with 160, there's our before information. What percent of the original number remains? So we're asking 32 is what percent of 160? Okay, now remember, this 160 represents 100% of what they started with. All right, so let's see here. Why don't I have, okay, here we go. Alrighty, so we're looking at what percent, 32 is what percent of 160. So let's write that down just like I said it. 32 is what percent of 160. So let's put this into an equation form. 32 equals, we don't know the percent, so we're going to put that P over 100 times 160. You're going to end up with 32 equals 160. Actually, I can do some canceling here. So let's do some canceling so I can make this a little smaller. We can cross off those zeros. 2 goes into 16, 8, and 2 goes into 10, 5. Okay, so you're going to have 8 over 5 P equals 32. Now I want to get rid of my fraction there to isolate P, so I'm going to multiply, I'll stick it right in here by its reciprocal on both sides, remember. Go back to blue. That crosses out, and the percent is going to be, oh, look here, I can do some canceling. 8 goes into 8 once, and here 4. So P is 20%. So 32 is actually 20%. And that's the answer to letter A. Letter B, Caesar's Legion had an inventory of 2,400 pairs of thongs. So let's go ahead and get that information here. 2,400 is the before number. That's what we're starting with. So we call that the before number. If they normally wear out 30% of their supply by the end of the fiscal year, how many pairs of thongs remain at the end of the fiscal year? Okay, so 30% gets worn out, right? 30%, that's not the word they use. What'd they use? Yes, they did, wear out. And the second part of that would mean that 70% remains, right? Because it has to total the 100%. What we're trying to find is how many pairs of thongs remain. So actually, this is the information we're trying to figure out, okay? What number is 70% of 2,400? So let's write this out. What number is 70% of 2,400? Now we'll put that in an equation form. And you can do the same thing. I'm going to knock off 2 zeros there. And we'll just do the math. 70 times 24. 70 times 24 is 1,680. So that's how many thongs remain at the end of the year. 70% of 2,400 is 1,680. Okay? So I don't know if you're seeing how these little diagrams can be somewhat useful. I'm not requiring them. If you feel like you don't need to have those, the part of it that I do like is when it gives you information like this, where they tell you how many wear out, but they don't tell you the percentage of those that remain, but they're asking you for the amount that remain. It just is kind of a nice way to sort it out. But I'm not going to require it, so when you see in the instructions it tells you to diagram them, I'm not necessarily going to require that. Letter C. Christopher and Chad collected 40 items. Okay, so that's what they have in the beginning. 40 items. That's before. When they added Kathy's items, their total increased by 150%. Okay, so this number is going to increase 150%. So I want you to think about this with me. Those 40 items, that is 100% of the items. It's going to increase 150% above that 100%. What was their new total after Kathy's items were added? All right, so what we're looking for is, let me see how to put this in the circle here. I guess we're looking for what number is, we want to put over here. What number is, okay, so remember it's 150 above the 100%. So what number is 250% of the 40? So let's write that out. What number is 250% of 40? Now let's write this out in a mathematical statement. What number is 250% of 40? Now I'm going to go ahead and reduce here. 20 goes into 40 twice. It goes into 105 times. Looks like I can even reduce here. Get a 1, and 5 goes into 250 50 times. So the number is then 100. And if you think about that, that is actually 150% larger than 40. It has to be a pretty big number because 100% on top of 40 would be 80, right? You would just double that. So it's going to be even more than that. So then it's going to be another 20, which brings it to 100. Okay, so that's basically how you use the diagrams. I do have to come back. I'm just getting kind of, it's 2 o'clock in the morning if you haven't noticed, but I need to come back and think about this number 3. So if you want to go ahead and try to figure that out on your own, that'd be great. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. So please come prepared with this lesson completed. You also had lesson 57 today that needs to be completed. We're going to continue moving forward with lesson 59 when I see you on Tuesday. I hope everyone is well, and I do get to see you on Tuesday. Have a